Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we are going to start a biker gang right here on Best Darn Diddly. We'll call it Diddly's Angels, and joining me, as always, the vice president of the biker gang, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
Wait, why am I just the vice president?
I meant to say co-president, and I twisted it up in my head. Yeah, I fucked up. That's I'm tell you what, just demote me. I'll be like a bruiser now or whatever. Prospect. There we go.
No, it's better than a prospector, I guess, which would be a different kind of gang altogether. But no, I'm doing just fine today, man. This episode was interesting to me. I didn't necessarily have fond memories outside of the John Goodman aspect on this one, but like maybe as is tradition, it played a little bit better than I remember. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it's just a piece of garbage. We'll have to find out here on Best Darn Diddly. But let me go ahead and throw it back to you. Oh, not one of those guys. You know what the difference is between a Harley Davidson and a vacuum cleaner?
I don't know. Yeah. I'm like, is this going to be a dirty joke or a dad joke? I never know with you.
The difference is where you put the dirt bag. Yeah, let me throw it back to you. The man, the myth, the Christ puncher. It is Miles.
You know, it's interesting that you brought it up, but I don't really have memories of this episode very much. Like you mentioned, like it doesn't. Like I remember watching it, but nothing really about it specifically jumped out at me. And I don't even think that back in the day I appreciated that was John Goodman doing the voice of the Sleaze.
Oh man, John Goodman was such a huge name back then. Like even as a child, I bet you probably did know who he was. You just don't remember the episode.
No, I definitely know. I love John Goodman. I'm sorry, I must have misspoke. I absolutely adore John Goodman. I think he's one of like the funniest actors, and he's just like one of those people that can pop into like any role and be great. What I just did not realize that was him doing this part.
I gotcha. But yeah, it's for me, even as a kid, he had just such a recognizable voice. But like, I was one of those kids that was good where I hear a voice be like, "Oh, is that so and so?" And I'd feel so cool for being this nerdy little kid that
I was not that person. I'll still like I'll hear voices and be like, I know I should know that voice, and and yeah, be like, "Oh, mom, sorry." Yeah.
Well, okay then. Let's continue with the episode.
This episode is actually filled with a lot of like guest spots, both musically and actor-y. Because
there actually is one I did not like. I was shocked to find out that who it was in this episode. So that kind of goes completely against what I just said. But yeah, there was a really, really shocking one I didn't realize was in the episode.
Now I'm genuinely curious to know which was it. Was it? Did you just do an action while I was looking at my notes that gave me a clue?
No, I just went.
Oh, okay. Oh, Macaulay Culkin?
No.
Oh,
no. Henry Winkler.
That's gonna play so well for the people that listen and don't have the video for this podcast. Oh well. Yeah, Henry Winkler in this is also great, and there's some excellent Fonz jokes, Happy Days jokes, stuff like that. But we'll go ahead and dive in. This episode is titled "Take My Wife, Sleaze," which originally aired on November 28th, 1999. Has the chalkboard gag of "I can't see dead people," which is a play on the very popular at the time movie The Sixth Sense, where a kid in fact did see dead people. And
spoiler alert.
Yeah, true. Sorry if I just ruined that movie for you. My bad. And the couch gag on this one is a repeat where we see the Simpsons go through their couch as if it were a paper shredder coming out in like strips of themselves on the other side. There was also a pretty thorough commentary track on the DVD for this one. This episode was written by John Swartzwelder. So, of course, that means that he was not part of the commentary track. But we did have Mike Scully, Julie Thacker, Ian Maxtone Graham, George Meyer, Dan Castellaneta, and Neil Affler. Neil was like the director of this episode, I want to say, and he was like teleconferencing in or doing the thing that they did at that time for these commentaries, which was very popular in the world of technology that we lived in the 90s.
That is a pretty stacked commentary, though.
It is. It's interesting what they mostly talked about. They talked a lot about the music and the band that was featured in this episode, which we'll definitely get into here as we go along. We opened up on The Simpsons watching TV, as we so often see, and they're actually watching a show that was a real show at the time. It was Guinness World Records, which the only thing is these world records just didn't quite seem to be like what you would actually see on a record breaking show. For instance, like at one point we see the contents of a supermodel's insides. Ooh, so much sweet and low.
And the world's smelliest tumor. I mean, that's definitely a world record, I guess.
Right? What's the scale on that? You have like one person who sniffs tumors. Oh, nope, that's the new record holder.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh, you were disgusted. I thought you were about to correct me on the process. Like, whoa. It's not just one guy, all right? It's two qualified people smelling those tumors.
Well, if someone's disgusted by it, it's probably because they have personal experience with it. But never mind. That's too much of a joke.
Oof. This episode of Guinness World Records is really just a way to get us to the catalyst for this episode, which is a commercial break for a 50s, right? A 50s diner, where we see a character that is based on a very famous radio personality. It's actually Wolfman Jack. This character is Wolf Guy Jack, so it's just very thinly veiled. And voiced by Hank Azaria, who does a lot of work in this episode, like he so often does. Hey, remember go ahead, you got it.
Oh, okay. We could both do it. That's
going to be awkward. Yeah, but maybe we'll get the raspiness right.
I don't know if Hank Azaria is that good of a voice actor to do two voices simultaneously. But maybe.
What if we're like the Wonder Twins, and if we put our voices together, we can have anyone's voice? Hank Azaria wouldn't be a bad choice.
Well, hey, remember the 50s? Remember television, Coca-Cola, and Dick Clark?
And Homer's so like in his, I remember television.
Come join me, Wolf Guy Jack, at Greaser's Cafe, where it's 1955 every day of the year, baby.
Actual year may vary. Consult calendar for current year.
A 50s-style restaurant.
And everyone agrees it's a very neat idea. And Bart's even like, why don't we just eat there tonight?
We'll go next month.
And this is such a Shortswelder joke. It like immediately just pans, like literally nothing changes. The family's just sitting on the couch watching TV, but it says 1 month later, and then they're going to the restaurant.
Be fair, Homer stayed true to his word.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And
I didn't even read the next part of the script.
And in these next few like scenes, basically, or this next sequence that happens at the 50s diner, it is just full of references. It's full of newspaper headline jokes. It has a lot of American graffiti jokes. I really like the bit where they do with Lenny, where the bathrooms are labeled cool cats and squares. And like Lenny walks into the Cool Cats one, and immediately you hear like women shrieking, and he comes out embarrassed. So he walks into the squares, but then the same thing happens, and like he's just sitting there scratching his head.
That was a funny joke.
I'll see if I have any of the references written down, because there are like a ton of them. Like I said, I thought they were written. For instance, Wolf Guy's blonde coworker, the guy that was doing the commercial is there, and his blonde coworker is an homage to Candy Clark's character and is Debbie in American Graffiti. The following 1950s references are used for menu items. Hamburgers named Allen Ginsburgers for the beatnik writer Allen Ginsberg. The grilled cheese sandwiches are named Un-American cheese sandwiches after Senator Joseph McCarthy's pejorative for people suspected of being communist. And the hot dogs are named polio dogs after the vaccine that would ultimately wipe out the disease.
It's funny how times change, but they don't change at all.
That is interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We also see a sequence where Bart meets the actor that played Dennis the Menace. And this was actually really interesting. That is Jay North is the actor's name. He played Dennis the Menace in the series, and that was actually Matt Groening's inspiration for Bart because Matt Groening was always annoyed that he did not feel like Dennis was that much of a menace. Like he was more so just like a clumsy kid that was sometimes problematic for his grouchy neighbor, but he didn't really do anything inherently bad. So that's a lot of where like Bart's energy comes from is like, no, I'll show you a menace. But Jay North, the actor, they actually found him working as a prison guard at the time. Whenever he came back to reprise his role for this cameo, and he had a absolutely fantastic time and was really happy to come back and reprise the character even for a silly bit.
It's crazy where life takes you sometimes, but I would have never guessed that in a million tries.
Right? Yeah. I do like the little sequence because it's really Bart and Jay North having a standoff, and North's like, yes, I was America's bad boy. I once hid my dad's hat.
Uh-huh.
And another time, I accidentally stepped in Mr. Wilson's flower bed. That was a 2-part episode.
They have to go.
And like Bart is like awkwardly unimpressed. Like he's just like, okay, guy.
Well, if you think about it, when Dennis the Menace first started, if they had a kid that was just blatantly bad just to be bad, it probably wouldn't have played as well as it does in the 90s.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this Dennis the Menace was a product of his time for sure, and that 90s dude hadn't been invented yet.
There you go.
I like that as they're looking over the menu, and Abe, it's like an old-time car, and Abe actually thinks they're driving to California. This is where Lisa reads a lot of the menu items, and Homer is like fascinated by all the old-timey stuff, but he's just playing with a regular napkin dispenser, and Lisa's finally like, Dad, that's not a 50s napkin dispenser. That's like a modern napkin dispenser.
It's in every restaurant.
There you go. We're interrupted by Wolfman Jack coming in.
Oh, man. My throat doctor says I'm not supposed to do that anymore. Okay, is everybody ready for our nightly dance contest?
Dancing?
Oh, no. You're not getting me on that dance floor. Don't try and make me. If I have to get a divorce, I will.
I like that that's what Homer jumps to is his conclusion. It's like, if you make me dance, I'll divorce you. But that's when Jack makes an announcement that piques Homer's interests.
Our grand prize tonight is a vintage 1955 Harley Davidson motorcycle.
And we see the showroom floor spins around to reveal like a beautiful bike. Homer starts to freak out. Oh, I need a dance partner. Marge, how about you?
Okay, Daddy-o.
And Marge couldn't be happier because, of course, she wanted to dance the whole time. Mm-hmm. This next sequence is absolutely insane. They play a song called Mental House Rock, which is clearly a homage to Jailhouse Rock by Elvis Presley. But apparently, according to the commentary, John Swartzwelder actually had most of this sequence entirely, like all of the direction, the stage direction was actually detailed in the script for like a lot of the dance moves, and even the bit where he at one point tosses Marge out of the building and she walks back through the door and is like, oh, a 50s diner, how neat.
Is spinning around her blue hair at one point.
She spins Homer around at one point too. It gets pretty crazy.
What a dance. They've clearly practiced that before.
You would think that this was not their first time, but it seems like it actually goes over pretty well. Do they announce that they win before or after we get back from the first act? Now I'm blinking.
Well, Wolf Guy does the bit where he said, I've never seen such reckless disregard for a wife's well-being in my life.
Yeah.
And that's when he awards them the winners of the motorcycle.
Yep. So before he actually is given the motorcycle, before, by the way, this is a very short first act. This first act is only 4 minutes and 9 seconds. So
Wow.
we have a lot happening like that just to kind of set up the catalyst of this episode. But Homer is, in fact, a proud owner of a new motorcycle. And I think we actually go out onto like the end of the act with Jack like in a coughing fit for some reason.
Well, he goes, okay, hip cats, let's twirl some platters at Greaser's Cafe where the 50s are never going away.
And then we cut to 3 days later and he's boarding up an out of business sign.
Well, that dream is over. At least we still have each other, right, honey? Honey?
And we do a classic gag where the camera pulls back and we see that Jack is sitting there boarding up that business alone.
Oh, God.
And he tries to do like one last howl there, but it just doesn't, it's not happening. His voice is shot. So pretty dark ending for Jack, I'd say.
Yep.
And that brings us to the end of our first act. Again, very, very short, only 4 minutes long. We immediately open up with the second act. Homer is sitting in the front yard on his brand new motorcycle, but it's weird because he's not actually riding. He's just making motorcycle noises and pretending to ride.
And then Bart has to do the whole thing where he basically figures out and says, Dad, do you know how to ride a motorcycle? Or he asks his dad what's wrong, I think. And Homer says,
promise not to laugh at me or something like that.
Sure, what's going on?
And that's when Homer admits that he doesn't know how to ride. And the commentary pointed out just how much props we should give Nancy Cartwright for this scene. Because to sustain laughter and deliver lines like that for that long is actually really tough. And she, like, I think it's like a solid 40 seconds of laughter. Yeah, that's probably too much. It's probably 20 seconds, but it feels like a long time.
But it does this bit where like he's laughing at him in the front yard, and then all of a sudden they're in the living room, and the laugh hasn't stopped. So it looks like Bart's been laughing for a long time, but he's on the couch, leaned over, laughing, and Homer still looks upset on the couch.
And even later at the table, when it cuts, and Homer finally asks Bart, like, well, can you teach me how to ride? And like Bart, through laughter, like agrees to help. But there's so much about this sequence and this next scene that is just so weird, including like the fact that for some reason Bart knows how to ride a motorcycle, but Homer doesn't.
Makes sense.
And also this song that we get is like a love ballad.
Yep. They do this montage of Bart training Homer how to drive the motorcycle with training wheels and everything. But yeah, it's
like you showed me everything. You took me by the hand. And we see Bart pushing him on training wheels.
Mm-hmm.
Puppy dogs and Lincoln logs and castles by the sand.
And Bart lets go and Homer crashes through the fence to the Flanders.
You gave me the courage to spread my newborn wings like mayonnaise and marmalade and other spreadable things.
Now Homer's revving the engine. And this is my favorite part, but he revs the engine and his jeans get ripped off into the engine.
And he's got like the perfect amount of hair on his legs. Like they did such a good job of drawing that.
But then he leans down to like get the pants out of there and his shirt gets ripped into there too. So he's just sitting on the motorcycle in his underwear.
And like the ballad continues. So I guess you are my hero and there's something you should know. I want to make it clear, so I'm going to sing it slow.
And now Bart's on his bike following Homer on his motorcycle.
Like, he's holding his dad up on his bicycle. That doesn't even make sense.
No.
But Homer actually, like in typical like this type of sequence when a dad's teaching their kid to ride a bike moments, like he kind of rides off by himself, and at first it's a little shaky, but then he realizes he's doing it on his own. And I think this is actually where we during like this next bit of lines, it actually pans up to the moon, which is so weird. But if you weren't a man and my father too, I'd buy you a diamond ring and then I'd marry you.
What a weird line.
So odd. And like you see Homer and Bart just like their faces in the moon smiling at each other.
And Homer's gotten it right. He can ride.
Absolutely. He's like immediately cuts from being like having to have his son hold him up on a bike to like king of the roads, man.
Yeah.
And we see the next day at Springfield Elementary School, Miss Krabappel is talking to her class. All right, today we'll be sitting quietly in the dark because teacher has a hangover.
Then she starts to close the window to let the darkness sink in the room.
But unfortunately for her, we can hear what we have to assume is Homer revving his motorcycle. Like a chainsaw in my head. And we actually see Homer rides Bart into the classroom, even knocking over Martin's desk on the way. Bart just hops off nonchalantly. And I love Nelson's like, sweet hog, Mr. Simpson.
Remember to rebel against authority, kids.
And Skinner immediately on the intercom, don't listen to him, children.
How could he hear? It's on a two-way intercom.
But Milhouse is there. But we already did. Now I can't get it out of my head. What?
Nelson hits Milhouse with a book.
And Miss Krabappel actually thanks Nelson for smacking the bad ideas out of Milhouse's head. This is a great scene. Yep. And it leads into another great sequence because basically we're going to see Homer is just taking his bike into all sorts of inappropriate places, such as the church and his bedroom.
It makes Reverend Lovejoy end the sermon, though. Like, you know, his sermons go on forever.
And everybody is so thrilled. Like, yeah, he's trying every time Reverend Lovejoy tries to speak, Homer's like, rum, 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 rum. And he finally just gives up. And like, everybody is like, even I think Flanders is like joyous as he leaves the church. Though he does have a motorcycle gang to join.
That is true.
But I love the sequence with him and the Hell's Angels. No, that's not right. Whatever it is, we'll get there.
But isn't the scene with when he's in bed with Marge and she's saying you have to take it everywhere, you have to turn it down, and the bike itself revs louder without Homer touching it?
Yeah, the bike's like sitting off to the side of Homer, and it's almost like a Homer's side chick, but like very aggressive. We see Homer's actually watching an old movie on television, and the announcer says, and now back to your Tuesday morning movie. And a guy, he's watching a movie, like he's basically watching like a James Dean movie.
Oh, I don't know what's the matter with Jimmy. He won't do his homework. He only salutes the flag with one finger, and he comes home every night with other people's blood on his shirt.
He's a rebel, I tell you. A rebel without a cause. Just like that boy in that popular movie we saw. And we see that Jimmy and his motorcycle gang are riding through a store and basically just a new idol for Homer.
Yeah, that's the life for me, Marge. Cruising and hassling shopkeepers.
Only we cut back to the movie where a cop is now arresting Jimmy. When will you teens learn to be uncool like everyone else?
Never, Pops.
And Homer's like so supportive of this new character. Yeah, that's right, never.
You can arrest me, but you'll never defeat the Cobras. Nothing can defeat a motorcycle gang.
And we see that the gang rides off in the dust as the words "the end" pop up, and
that's Jimmy behind bars. Like it cuts to him being behind bars, but then the rest of the gang is riding off.
That's right. Jimmy's actually in jail, but for whatever reason, the only message that comes through to Homer is a gang. Yeah, that's the answer. Strike first, strike hard, no mercy.
Answer to what?
Hey, don't make me hassle you, Lisa. He just started his gang and he's already trying to intimidate people.
Movie played so well to him.
He ends up getting a group of Springfieldians together, including Mo, who has a bike that keeps breaking down. He has Carl and Lenny, who don't have a motorcycle at all. He has Ned.
To be fair, Mo's bike is not like a motorcycle that you would recommend driving. It's a very old and dilapidated, like
In the script, it says it's 20. It's from the 20s, the 1920s.
But I can neither confirm nor deny that it's from the 20s from the look of it.
No idea. But yeah, still better off than Carl and Lenny, who do not have a motorcycle at all. Ned is interested in joining as well, and at first they're like, no, but then he reminds them that he has that awesome den, the rumpus room with a bumper pool.
Ooh,
that's too good to turn down. And so we see them having the first meeting of the Hell Satans,
which they're going to determine what their name is in the first meeting.
But Homer just immediately calls it to order as the Hell Satans. And they're in Ned's house, and Ned immediately protests, I move we reconsider our club name, make it something a little less blasphemous. After all, we don't want to go to hell.
How about the Devil's Pals?
Nope.
The Christ Punchers?
I don't think you understand my objection.
I like how they almost got Ned to say it, but they didn't.
Yeah.
I'm the president. The decision is mine. We're Hell's Satans. Besides, I already made our club jackets.
And we actually see he's got this really very poorly made windbreaker with Hell Satan stitched on it.
It looks like he just wrote
machine wash warm.
Tumble dry. Ooh la la.
What were you gonna say? It looked like he did what with it?
It looks like he just wrote it on most of their stuff, in black Sharpie.
Yeah, very crudely done. Mm-hmm. But they are a biker gang nonetheless. They are finally riding around the streets together. Carl has rented a scooter from Hertz. Flanders is on a kid's bicycle, and Lenny is riding on a lawnmower.
It works.
They pull up along Chief Wiggum, and they start oinking at him. And he vows that Wiggum is like, I'm going to put you all in juvenile detention someday.
And then Homer quotes he quotes one of the lines from the movie he was just watching. But he called you, you'll never get the Cobras. You can't defeat us.
Yeah, that's right. He forgot to put his own name into the line.
Yeah. He was like, I thought you were the Hell's Angels or Hell's Satans.
Oink, oink, oink. They ride off. They start loitering around the Quickie Mart until Apu has to chase him away with a broom. And I like the scene where Manjula is she doesn't like the use of the broom, and they totally mirror this to be a gun violence thing when Apu is like, I know you do not like the broom, but it is we are Americans now.
Yeah, we are in America now. And they were so terrified of the broom when they saw it.
And it's also funny to me that literally just an episode ago, Homer was helping them with their 8 kids, helping them break them out of the zoo, which sounds terrible saying that out loud, but that is the script of the episode. That's my fault. They did it, not us. But
that's what you get on Best Darn. I almost said everything. Yeah, you get everything.
You get everything on Best Darn Did That.
I forgot the name
Sometimes
of our
you
show.
Literally get everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, Homer is everything is going well in his mind. He gets to cause problems for people, raise a little hell while he rides around with his biker gang. He even subscribes to Outlaw Biker Magazine and was very happy that his gang was featured. Though Marge was a little less thrilled to see that she was also in the magazine, namely as the Cycle Slut of the Month.
Yeah, and Homer took a photo of her with the bike in the bed with her in her little lingerie or nightie thing.
And Marge's like, you took a picture of me when I was asleep?
If you'd have been awake, you would have said no. You could see the bind I was in.
Oh my God. That's awful for what it's worth. But Marge is reading her own layout in the magazine. Her turn-ons include thievery and liquor. Her turn-offs include underpants, pedestrians, and justice. Ugh.
I mean, Homer put some thought into that one, I guess, for about 2 seconds.
Is he describing his dream girl right now? What is happening?
Just his flavor of the episode, I guess.
Yeah, his biker gang dream girl, I mean, specifically.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of biker gangs,
This is when we see what this episode is really going to be about, because in this moment during Marge and Homer's fight, an actual biker gang busts through the door of some people that look like they know how to ride a bike much better than Homer's gang does. And also they look like they could fight a lot better than Homer's gang does.
I don't know. Homer's a pretty good fighter. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, we see the man who goes by the name of Meat Hook announce themselves as the Hell's Satans out of Bakersfield.
And at this point, they've driven through the window. They've gone up the stairs, all on their bikes.
They've driven into their bedroom, like motorcycles the whole time.
And somehow knew which bedroom was the parents' bedroom.
Yeah, they didn't accidentally drive into the kids' bedroom and be like, "Oh, my bad."
I think that's why in the shot they have Bart and Lisa poke their heads out of their rooms, but it's like as the bike's going by, so they still had to know which one was the bedroom. You're the Hell's Satans? What a fun coincidence. My gang's name is also
Shut up. And I love this sequence because he picks up Homer by the 3 hairs on his head and is like holding him there. You stole our... That
makes it even more impressive.
You stole our club name. And the rest of the gang shows up, including somebody by the name of Ramrod.
According to our bylaws, we gotta stomp you.
Take off that jacket, man.
Okay.
And we see Meat Hook pulls out a switchblade and tells him, and now eat it.
All right.
Hey, chew with your mouth closed, please.
Done.
So Ramrod and Meat Hook actually make Homer eat his denim jacket that has the Hell's Angels. I'm sorry, Hell's Hellions, Hell's Devils. What the hell is it?
Hell's Satan.
Hell's Satan.
Hell's Satan.
Hell's Satan's logo on it. He actually has to eat it. But Marge finally speaks up to Meat Hook. Okay, I think he's learned his lesson.
But then Homer's immediately putting on a sweatshirt that says "Hell's Satan's" on it.
Oh man, now you gotta eat that too.
Oh.
And Ramrod's like, you got anything else with our logo on it?
Captain Frisbee, sir.
And you're gonna have to eat those as well.
And some pogs.
Oh man, now we've got Hell's Satans in pog form.
They're back.
So we actually see that the Hell's Satans have taken over the Simpsons' house, making their house their own club's ruckus room. They're doing everything you'd expect a biker gang to do that's portrayed in a TV show. They're playing music, spitting on everything, tattooing one another. One person literally picks up a toilet and drinks out of it like a beer mug. But more than anything, they're just making an absolute mess out of everything. Marge is doing her best to try to keep things clean. And I love this scene where she's putting oil pans that are dripping from their bikes under things. And then one of the drips turns out to be like tobacco from one of the gang members' mouth. It's gross, but funny.
Yeah. They did a good job making it look absolutely disgusting.
It does. Their house looks like the messiest it's ever been. Homer's trying to get help. He actually calls the police and asks them to send SWAT to 742 Evergreen.
Yeah, forget it, Simpson. Those pig noises you made really hurt my feelings. Looking like a pig as I do.
Homer tries to backtrack here by explaining that Wiggum has a lot of inner beauty.
Well, be that as it may, the gang is wanted in 8 other states, and we have a saying around here. Let Michigan handle it.
That is a good saying.
Yeah, it's a great saying.
Things are just going terribly in terms of like the biker gang is making more and more of a mess. Meat Hook at one point tries to cook eggs in a toaster just to kind of give you an idea. Marge finally is like, just stop. If you want food, let me make it for you. Cause you know, they're doing a terrible job.
I'd kill for some waffles.
Ramrod chimes in and he has. Remember the IHOP in Oakland? Hey, this is a lot better than that rancid filth we find in the dumpsters.
Thank you, Ramrod.
Marge, how do you get my jacket so clean? I've tried everything to get those blood and puke stains out. I've even tried hitting them. I've tried yelling at them.
All it takes is the right cleanser and a little elbow grease.
Do you have anything that'll get this emblem back on my jacket? I've tried spitting at it, but
Just put it on my sewing pile. Okay, I'm doing another load of I almost said bananas. It's bandanas.
But to be fair, Marge probably did pass out bananas as a snack.
Probably.
So we kind of see that with Marge's help, the living standards for the Hell Satans has gone up significantly. Like they are no longer having nearly as like gross of a time. Though we still see that the kids are kind of displaced because they're having to take showers in the backyard, and Lisa's upset because she's pretty sure Rod and Todd are watching.
No, we're not.
And you see them like close the blinds of their bathroom, those little perverts.
And then you see them looking underneath the blinds. Like
you see their eyes, yeah.
Rod and Todd.
So Homer finally has had enough. He tells the biker gang it's time for them to go. But when he walks inside, he's like, oh, I guess they've already gone. So the family reconnects at the kitchen table where Homer is telling the kids all about his bravery.
They're all using their forks on their plates, too, I want to point out right here.
Like with manners and whatnot.
And the bikers saw the hard look in my eye. You know, that hard look I get sometimes. And they ran away like schoolgirls with their tails between their legs.
He actually starts imitating it. Bart's impressed. Way to go, Dad. Hey, where's the food?
Why aren't we at school?
And Homer says, yeah, someone really dropped the ball here, Marge. Marge? And we pan out to reveal that there is no Marge. Marge is not at the table, but what is at the table is a note pinned with a tack to the back of Homer's head.
Dad, there's a note on the back of your head.
Really? And we actually
and
pulls the tack out of his head.
But my favorite part about this scene is that Bart pulls the tack out of his head to get the note, but then puts it back in his head like so nonchalant.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting us crash in your pad. We had a very nice time.
Oh, that's sweet.
P.S. We've taken your old lady.
Go! So
That's
brings us
the
to
end
the
of that chapter.
Our second act, which for keeping track purposes, the second act of this episode was definitely the longest act because it was over 10 minutes long. Again, the first one was barely over 4, and this one ends at 14:20. So that leaves us with, about like the first 2 acts together are like actually balanced to be 2/3 of the episode. It's just weird how very vastly unbalanced they were. But so far we've got a great setup, a lot happens, and really that first 4 minutes did exactly what it needed to get the ball rolling. So I kind of like it when they do that, and John Swartzwelder tends to do that a lot. I feel like we find that he almost like intentionally messes with our expectations by changing the act amount of time that's given to each.
I was going to say, maybe we need to start with, depending on who the writer of the episode is, keeping tabs on like episode lengths or act lengths.
Shit, we're going to have to go back and start over. All right.
Yeah. Because I'd just be interested to see if it's a common trend among writers that are even and ones that kind of go willy-nilly, because I wouldn't be surprised. This would be very Swartzwelderian
if he actually exists.
Yeah, to go short than long.
So we open up our third act with Marge now as essentially a hostage of this biker gang, and she's a little concerned, as you might expect, as she's with a bunch of bikers up in the woods, and she asks, could you at least tell me what you're planning to do with me?
Oh, don't worry. You're completely safe. None of us find you sexually attractive.
None of you? Really? I could have sworn that Ramrod was interested. Mm-hmm. And Ramrod's like shaking his head. Well, did you see that picture of me in the magazine?
Mm-hmm.
And you still don't?
Mm-mm. Sorry.
Well, good, I guess. So
awkward scene.
This is a super awkward scene, and they the writers of the show literally on the commentary talked about that they knew that they were kind of treading a very uncomfortable line, so they thought that the best way to address that was to just kind of hit it on the head right out the bat on the third act, because I mean in a traditional sense, a woman getting kidnapped by a biker gang and taken to the woods is probably not going to end well for that woman. So that's why this scene exists, is to literally just paint the picture that there would be none of that happening in this episode.
All right. Way to save your own asses, kind of, but not really.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was probably the right move.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
sure,
it ended up to be
thinking...
a very funny joke, which there's another great joke coming up with Marge here in just a little bit that I'm excited to talk about because it has just such a fun backstory. But for now, we see that Marge is abducted but safe. And Homer is on the search for his wife. He's actually leaving instructions with the kids. If anything were to happen to Marge or he were not able to find her, he left some contact information for Bart and Lisa.
Korean love brides.
I don't want to be alone. So messed up to leave with your kids, of all people. So we see that Homer revisits Papa Wheelie's, which is a biker. Sorry, I thought that was the 50s restaurant, but this is actually a biker bar where he knows that he will be running into bikers and hopefully finding the ones that took his wife. When he walks in, we see the band NRBQ is playing, which NRBQ has many songs in this episode and a cameo at the end. Mike Scully actually talked about this, and I thought it was really interesting. He admits that he kind of abused his power with this one because he just really likes this band. So they spent a decent amount of their music budget to make this episode happen just so that he could have one of his favorite bands play in the show that he works on, which I think is totally fair and deserved. A lot of their songs are played throughout the episode, and in this case, we see this is the first time in an episode that we see an animated version of a band and the live action version of the band play in the same episode. The reason that they were working so closely with the band and able to get them to do that thing at the end is because at the time that this episode was being made, both Mike Scully and Julie Thacker, who would eventually go on to marry Mike Scully and become Julie Thacker Scully, but at the time they were not married, but they were working together on an A&E documentary about the band NRBQ. So they put together the song at the end, but Julie Thacker pointed out that nobody asked them to wear pajamas. That was just their choice.
Well, that was a good explanation of that. That's weird that they were doing a documentary based on this, right? But I guess that's just what we did in the 90s and still today.
I was going to say, I think that makes total sense. He already admitted it's a band he really loves. So I could see them, being excited to help make that happen and working in television. They could, easily assist in that project.
Well, I just wonder if Julie says she likes the band, but she really doesn't, or says she doesn't like the band, but she really does, and she's just going along with it because she was trying to get in his pants.
Or one of them was definitely more into the other person than the actual band.
Mm-hmm.
The chameleon daters or whatever. But unfortunately for Homer, people are very much enjoying this band so much that when he tries to interrupt, they immediately just kick his ass out of the bar. And he actually
breaks a beer mug when they're not listening to him when he goes in there. He thinks that's gonna I'm tough at the biker bar and immediately gets tossed out of there.
And he's like knocked out cold. Yeah, but we see him come to and he decides, you know what? We'll try a different idea this time. So he goes in and like very politely taps a knife on a glass like you would if you were about to give a speech, for instance.
And he's back in the parking lot.
Same results. He immediately gets knocked out again. Yeah.
And he goes, well, some folks never learn. Talking about the people in the bar, but he goes back in.
Yeah. Beautiful line. We cut back out to see that the Hell Satans are actually making plans to roll out at dawn. Marge is curious as to where they're going, and they mention they're going to the Bikers Jamboree in South Dakota. And he's like, you're going to love it. Mickey Rourke's coming, and we're going to jump him. Which the Jamboree in South Dakota is actually a reference to the real life biker rally that they do down there that I'm totally blanking on right now.
I watched a travel show where they went there once and it looked like it was crazy.
And
Well,
I can't believe they
should've
actually did a
done-
wrestling show there at one point, and now I can't.
Oh
Sturgis.
God, I bet that was
It's
terrible.
called
Yep,
Sturgis,
Sturgis.
is
Yeah,
what it
dude, thank
is.
you.
Yeah,
That was gonna bother me. We should have researched before we did the show.
I did. I just forgot to. Honestly, in my head, I'm like, I won't forget Sturgis, but it is.
Yeah.
So
there's more to life than boozing and roughhousing.
And the bikers legitimately seem confused by this statement.
Haven't any of you ever had a dream?
Yeah, I had a dream. I was in this beautiful garden pounding the crap out of a shopkeeper. And then.
No. I mean, the dream of a good job, a loving family, and a home in the suburbs.
Oh, man, to get all that, you'd have to kill like 50 people.
Oh, you don't have to kill anyone. Not if you have jobs, and the first step is an eye-catching resume.
No, I believe it's pronounced resume.
Actually, both are acceptable.
So neither of us said that word correctly because we were trying to say trying to emphasize the correct syllable. But that line reading and that joke actually came from an authentic line reading by Julie Kavner, who actually did say it the way Marge says it the first time. That was the authentic way that Julie Kavner actually read the line. The writers then were like, I think you said that wrong. I think it's this. And then they looked it up and found that both pronunciations are acceptable. So they thought that was so funny. They would just keep this whole bit in the episode. And yeah, that's exactly how that came to be.
That's the kind of stuff that, like, I don't know. That's like, it's an inside joke that the writers and Julie had. I think that's great. Like, that's just something that like us normal folk would do.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
What an average thing to have happened to you. That became a really funny thing in the script.
And well, honestly, I think it's just a small joke in the whole episode on this one, but like that's something all of them will laugh about every time they see it.
Mm-hmm. And they probably had a hell of a time, like her and John Goodman probably had a hell of a time laughing about it as it happened.
Probably.
Homer's still on the hunt for his wife. He's actually asking an attendant at a gas station who says that, yeah, I saw some bikers ride by here with a blue-haired woman about 10 minutes ago. Said they were going to spend the night at Crystal Lake Campground, Section K, space 217. I'm sorry I can't be of more help.
I guess I'll never find her.
This is like the most detailed explanation. Like it makes you borderline worry. Why was that guy stalking them all the way to their campsite? Or like, why were they telling them?
Well, maybe he just has a really good memory.
It's possible, I guess.
It's only 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Why are they going to Camp Crystal Lake? That's what I want to know.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to get Jason Voorhees? Because that's how you get Jason Voorhees.
Well, I mean, they're not having sex, so they're going to be fine, right?
That's true. That's an add-on to that first joke we mentioned earlier.
That's why we don't see him in the episode.
So Marge is actually like basically giving these bikers some life coaching, and she's telling them how they can improve their lives by doing better at a job interview. For instance, try to not call your employer a punk or a skank.
Makes sense.
I love Ramrod, who again is voiced by Meat Hook is John Goodman, and Ramrod is Harry Winkler, the Fonz. The realization that Henry Winkler has is so great here. Oh, don't call them skanks. Like he's genuinely like shocked by it.
Yeah. Miss Simpson, I killed my pencil.
You broke your pencil.
Broke him.
That's right. And what else have we learned?
That violence is wrong.
Excellent, Ramrod. Civilized people solve their disputes with words. And of course, with perfect timing, Homer comes through the woods as a just completely violent maniac, and he starts attacking the gang members who
beating the crap out of them.
And the thing is, Meat Hook specifically is just standing there taking this beating, and he's looking at Marge for encouragement of like, how do I handle this? I'm trying to live in peace here. And like, so he's not fighting Homer, whose wife has just taught him about how to resolve problems with words.
Yeah, and she's like, use your words.
No, my wife is not a doobie to pass around. I took a sacred vow on my wedding day to bogart her forever.
Oh.
So Meat Hook decides that the only way to handle this situation is with a civilized alternative, which is actually a civilized fight in the circle of death.
Oh, I just cleaned the circle of death.
That's such a great Marge line. Oh my God. So if this episode wasn't already in a just world of absurdity, this is where it completely goes bonkers, because
this is the scene I remember this episode for.
This is also the only thing I really remember about this episode.
Yeah.
Homer and Meat Hook have a motorcycle fight. Not two guys fighting on motorcycles, but as if they had a choice of weapons, and their weapon choice was motorcycle. They're like swinging these motorcycles at each other by the axles, essentially treating it like a sword fight.
Well, that's because their chains got tangled. They started off with just
That's
chains.
right, yeah.
Homer got knocked down, and the only thing he could find was a motorcycle, and he used his surroundings just like he would in any action scenario.
Probably the absolute best moment is at one point Homer is down, he's lost his weapon, and Marge just picks up a motorcycle and tosses it up a cliff to him.
Yeah, just like when somebody has an extra sword up, when the woman's being held by the other guards, they go here and they toss the sword out of their pocket up to the guy fighting, and nothing happens to her.
Yeah. Yeah, except again, you can't do that with a motorcycle.
But you can. I saw it in the Simpsons episode.
It has to be real.
And I also saw on IMDb, and I never thought of it, but the first motorcycle Homer uses, he grabs by the front wheel, which it would be like pretty much impossible to hold a motorcycle up from the front wheel and use it like that.
Yeah, especially since the front wheel spins freely, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't think about that either. They end up getting like fighting up to the top of a staircase, I think is how it ends up, and it's not going well for Homer. Meat Hook even says to him, you know what I'm going to have to do after I kill you? Take your wallet.
Never. It was a gift from Newsweek.
And that's where Marge gives him the motorcycle. He's able to fight back, and he actually is able to defeat Meat Hook with his own weapon.
Knocks him down the stairs.
And Meat Hook is very understanding, though. He's like, oh, I don't blame you for wanting her back so bad. A woman like that only comes along every couple of miles.
Oh.
That is oddly sweet in a weird way.
No, it's not.
Marge is like, she doesn't know how to, like, is that complimentary or...
This is my favorite part of the episode, and it's just the quick delivery by Dan Castellaneta here on this next line.
Meat Hook asks, hey, can we at least keep her till the orgy at San Bernardino?
What do you say, honey?
No
dice.
Yeah, you're right. Homer's switch from being like, hey, I'm kind of interested, to no, of course not. That's ridiculous.
It's just the two extremes right there so fast, and it caught me off guard. I forgot about that line, and it made me crack up.
So the possession of Marge has been settled amicably, and the Hell Satans say goodbye to the other Hell Satans as they drive off to their jamboree.
All right. We'll stop at the nearest town and mail our resumes.
It still sounds weird to me. I also like there's a little nod here from Henry Winkler as they say goodbye. Everyone says goodbye, Mrs. Simpson, except for Ramrod, who's, again, Henry Winkler, who says bye-bye, Mrs. S., which is very similar to how the Fonzie greeted Mrs. Cunningham as Mrs. C back on Happy Days.
That's a little Easter egg for you out there.
We see Homer and Marge actually ride off on Homer's Harley, only it's Marge driving, which is kind of fun. They stop by Papa Wheelie's, the bar that Homer's been knocked unconscious at multiple times in this episode, to handle some unfinished business. And Homer basically runs in and then almost immediately runs out holding a keg of Duff, and he jumps on the back of the motorcycle with Marge, and Marge rides a wheelie off into the sunset.
That's why she was driving in that scene.
Which, that's just impressive that apparently Homer's the only one in the family that just doesn't know how to ride a motorcycle. Or while Marge was teaching the biker gang, life lessons, they were teaching her how to ride.
It makes it funnier if she already knew how to do it before the episode started. and it's not something she learned from like the game.
I agree with that.
It was just Homer that couldn't do it.
So this I mentioned a little bit earlier, but in the closing sequence of this episode, we actually get a live performance by the band NRBQ, who are playing a rendition that they created of the show's closing theme in their pajamas. Again, nobody asked them for that part, but it is kind of neat. Just it's very unsuspected because, like, again, you almost never see this on The Simpsons. Sometimes you might see a different animation sequence or a different song play, but to have a live band play the closing theme is a little bit just shocking.
It was a little weird,
yeah,
like, especially when you don't know the context.
Yeah, 100%. I would have to agree with that. But that brings us to the end of our episode, Take My Wife, Sleaze. Richie, is there anything else that you or that book of yours want to talk about before we call it a day?
I feel like the guest stars are good for this episode. So like John Goodman was awesome in this episode, and Henry Winkler, even though I didn't know it was him prior to this, was awesome in the episode. But I still feel like it's not that great of an episode overall. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm not a bike person, but I think this is kind of one of those things where they start saying that things get a little absurdist at times. And like, I'll always remember this episode for the bike fighting scene and how it just went a little off the handle. I didn't mean to do that, but I totally did. But yeah, this one was just, it had funny moments. And like, especially that line at the end, no dice. Like, I'll probably start using that in real life now. But I just, it was okay. Not great in my mind, but I mean, it's still worth watching for sure.
I kind of feel what you mean on that. Like it, as I went through it and reviewed it with you, I realized, man, there are so many great jokes in this episode, but they don't necessarily like pop in the same way that some of our previous episodes had.
Yeah, exactly. And that's usually not the case with the Schwartzwelder episode too. Like usually those are high up on our list. So
yeah, like I will say that I don't anticipate this one making it into my top 5. Even as consideration. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, maybe. You never know. I might have a complete change of heart by then.
That's weeks away from now. Don't put yourself in a corner there.
Now that we're padding this with best darn everything, that's months away, sir. We're fine. When we get to the finale, I'll just keep coming like, no, I really want to talk about this random thing because I don't. But maybe we'll even do an episode about top 10 lists at one point.
The best darn everything about top 10 lists. Or top 10 lists.
That's it.
At 9.
The only other thing that I thought was kind of neat that I want to mention for this episode is that Henry Winkler, again, who played Ramrod, and Julie Kavner, who played Marge Simpson, actually would go on to play husband and wife 7 years later in the movie Click, which is a movie that I actually really love and never realized until doing research for this episode that was Julie Kavner. And she's in a lot of like makeup for that film and whatnot, but like, yeah, it's kind of crazy, but yeah, that's they would go on to be on screen together again 7 years later.
That's awesome. I remember you from that time I recorded on The Simpsons.
Right? But that is going to do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to our Simpsons reviews. And hey, if you like us talking about The Simpsons, maybe you'll enjoy one of our Best Darn Everythings, where we talk about all sorts of random things like feel-good video game stories or South Park or even Blockbuster.
If you want to, you can follow us on social media. Miles is at Mr. Most Days Off. I am at the Wiz_Kid23. But most importantly, our show is at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY.
And I'm not certain what we will be talking about on our next Best Darn Everything, but I am certain that when we come back for our next Simpsons review, we will be covering the episode Grift of the Magi.
I got you, Miles. For the next Best Darn Everything, let Michigan handle it.
Perfect. And until next time, be cromulent to each other.